All right. So I think that I'd love to start off with a brief introduction of who you are and what you do. And so just take it away.
Sure. Well, first, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to connect here. So my name is Nick Licameli. I am a doctor of physical therapy. I am the team injury reduction and management specialist with 3DMJ. I also am the director of an outpatient orthopedic and physical and occupational therapy office. And I am a moderator in the telehealth Facebook group, Telehealth PT Providers, and I do some writing here and there and some other things. So, but yeah, it's basically a little bit about me. I'm a father to an 11-month-old girl, and so yeah, she's growing like crazy. But that's not for this podcast.
Yeah. Okay, so the topic of conversation that I wanted to bring up is the Dunning-Kruger effect, and I've I thought about it after what you shared in your as a part of your story on the Iron Culture podcast. So let's start off with what is it, and just give people a certain introduction to the subject, and we'll go from there.
Great. Yeah. So one of my favorite things to talk about, because I think it's foundational to what makes most people, I guess successful is the right word, and we'll put that word in quotes because success is different for everybody. But the there are some things that are solid principles, which mean that they'll be consistent throughout anything. And other things are more like tactics or specifics of a situation that are important, but they're ever changing depending on what the situation is. The principle that surrounds the Dunning-Kruger effect is something that needs to be there and needs to be foundational, especially when we're dealing with anything to do with science or the human body. So the idea is that the more that we know, the more that we know we don't know. So as we continue on our journeys, the important thing is that we stay hungry for knowledge, and we don't ever we're not ever married to a certain thought or belief too much. We don't put our identity in something too much. We put our identity in growth and a growth mindset, and the fact that if we fail at something, that means that we can get better. So I think that's one of my qualities that has helped me kind of navigate through the Dunning-Kruger effect, is that I've adopted this mindset of no matter what I do, I have the capability of improving at it. And what I'm doing right now could be wrong, but that's okay because I'm learning a ton as I'm being wrong, and I'm going to learn more, and I'm going to get better at whatever I'm doing. So when I first started out in this field, I guess, but so we'll talk physical therapy, but also bodybuilding. When you get your hands on a muscle magazine, right? Yeah, and Arnold is on the front cover, and it has all the information you ever need on how to get big and shredded, and you read through a couple of those magazines, and all of a sudden you realize that you know information that the average person doesn't know about weightlifting. So now you want to spread this information to everybody because you know something that other people may not know. And you're passionate about weightlifting and you're passionate about bodybuilding, and you want to help people become as educated as you are, and you want to spread that knowledge, and you want other people to feel what you're feeling. The problem is we don't know the whole story yet, right? We think we know because it's new and we're passionate about it, but we just don't really know. And we don't have the, I guess, the maturity to think about where the information is coming from and draw our own conclusions. We're basically getting spoon-fed information and we're taking it like gospel. Um, Almost like when you're young and you have your first girlfriend and you think that you're in love and you're like, oh, this is the best thing ever. And then you have another relationship after that and you're like, wow, I thought thought that was the best relationship, but now this is, and then you have another one, and you keep growing in this. But if you have that open mind to understand that maybe this isn't my wife at 15 years old, but I can learn a ton from interacting with this other human being. I can learn a ton about myself. I can learn a ton about how to talk to someone, how to communicate with someone, how to show empathy. So, little off topic there, but
Yeah,
in
a bit.
in physical therapy school, that's similar to those muscle magazines where we're getting educated, and nothing against the physical therapy programs because they did what they had to do. They taught me how to be a generalist. They taught me how to pass my licensing exam. They taught me how to be a pretty, good general physical therapist. Uh, but the thing with school is that the information coming to us is not going to be cutting edge because the school has to build this curriculum, which then has to make us pass this test, which takes years and years to make. So naturally, it's going to be a bit behind the research that's coming out now. And it takes a lot of time to make changes in a physical therapy program. And if you do make those changes, you have to make sure that they are consistent with the exam. Because if the students don't pass the exam, they can be the most evidence-based, up-to-date, cutting-edge physical therapists in the world. But if they don't pass that exam, then they're not going to have their license, right? So schools have to somewhat teach to the exam and teach the information that they have at their disposal. When we graduate from physical therapy school, we are so empowered, we're so enthusiastic, we're so ready to help people with our knowledge and our skills that we gained in school. And I think we don't have that mindset of thinking maybe things could be different, or maybe we should be challenging the information that we're receiving, asking our teachers, not to go head to head with them, but just ask a bit more, maybe in private, maybe go to their office and ask some more questions and just kind of assess where the information is coming from. I don't think that happens enough in school because we're so focused on passing, getting good grades, and getting out, right, and starting our career. Um, so then it only comes with time. It comes with time that we assess the information that we're getting. And for me, outside of school, and then there are mentors, right? You get a good mentor who you look up to and you think that they know everything, and then so you follow what they do when you take the continuing education courses that they recommend. And then you realize you just get further down the echo chamber of all these same ideas, similar to like the Facebook algorithm, where if you click on a video of like a cat jumping off a roof, all of a sudden a bunch of cat videos come up, or so that the what you seek out, you tend to gravitate towards more, I guess, when you have the autonomy to choose your continuing education. So I went down that road a bit after I was out of school. And then you get introduced to people like those at Clinical Athlete or Barbell Medicine or 3DMJ, right? All of these people now challenge your belief system. And in the beginning, it's easy to be threatened by that because you're so confident in yourself and you don't really want to change your mind because it doesn't feel good being wrong. But you have to have the ability to let that wall down and open up your mind to other points of view. So I'll stop there because I could talk for a long time, but that's kind of a good intro of the Dunning Kruger effect, and then how I've seen it play out in bodybuilding and physical therapy for me.
Mhm. Now, first of all, I think that the fact that you can talk for a while is part of the reason we're here. Uh, and I noticed that you covered some of the questions I'm about to ask. So maybe we'll repeat them a bit, but more and on the subject of your personal experience. And now I also wanted to add that I don't think that's something that's specific to physical therapy school or anything like that, but in general, when we talk about the university or the college setting, what you said, the fact that it takes some time to change the entire curriculum and testing and everything. I think one of the first things that I was taught in a lecture in psychology is that our professor just came in, said, whatever we're learning, it's just for you to pass the test. Right now, we know a shit ton of things to know that what I'm about to teach you is not an exact science. Not that psychology in general is an exact science, but you get the gist of it. Okay, so I wanted you to describe your first year of PT school, and how would you describe the understanding you had with the knowledge that you gained in your first year, and in comparison to how you look at it now, and how did you look at authority figures like your professors?
Yeah, great question. And I'm glad you asked that, because the way that I look at it, I've always had this drive and this passion for weightlifting and bodybuilding. So when I went to, we even start even sooner, or before that, in my undergrad education. So I was a biology major, and I always had in the back of my mind some way to relate the information that I was learning to bodybuilding or weightlifting, one way or another. Um, I remember learning that, water and oil, when mixed, they separate. And then there are different experiments that you can do with that, and talking about like fats and, and how they're, they don't, solubility and things like that. And I remember staying after class and asked my teacher, I said, so if I buy a jar of peanut butter where the oil kind of collects at the top, if I want to reduce the fat in my peanut butter, can I just pour some water on the top and then the oil will come to the surface and then I could dump it out? And my teacher just looked at me like, what? So the point is that, like, everything that I learned, I always tried to maintain and relate it back to what I was passionate about, and my drive, my why, I guess you could say. So when I went into my first year of physical therapy school, I had that with me, that drive to always kind of relate things back to physical, bodybuilding and weightlifting, and I also had some influencers and some mentors from a young age that were physical therapists that I still look up to, and think very highly of. So I had this image of the physical therapist that I wanted to be, because I had these people I looked up to. And so I went into physical therapy school with that in mind, meaning that I was just going to go there. I knew I was going to probably learn a lot of things that I wasn't going to use on a daily basis. And I wanted to always try to relate it back to bodybuilding, and try to mold it into becoming like my mentors who I had. So in the beginning, it's overwhelming because you're just throwing a bunch of information and you don't know what you're going to need to use every day. You don't know what you're going to need to know for the test. I guess I kind of separated that out in my mind in the beginning. Like, okay, this is something I'm probably going to use every day of my career. This is something I'm probably going to have to know for a test, and probably not ever going to have to know it again. Classes like anatomy. One of my favorite classes, we had human cadavers, and it was just straight anatomy for 1 month. I loved it, and I use it every day of my life, because I think back to that cadaver, think back to the parts of the body and everything like that. So that was an example of a class that I knew I was going to use forever. Most of the other stuff I knew I was just going to have to learn for the sake of learning it. So that was pretty much my approach in my first year. I just wanted to get accustomed to everything, the new program, the new school. A lot of people telling you that it's really hard, and it's, a lot of people drop out because they can't take the workload. So you have a lot of those thoughts going in your mind, like, am I going to be able to do this? And one thing that I've learned is that when people say you can't do something, you can't believe that, because they really don't know. They're not you. So I found that out very quickly in a lot of areas of my life, that people have told me that something is really hard, or you can't do it, or it can't be done, but it absolutely can. Anyway, that's pretty much where my first year was. And then the way that I look back at it now, I guess the way that I approach my education is that I gravitate more towards things that will help me every single day. So I'm not learning things that I'm not going to use. I don't have to pass a test anymore. So that makes learning for me now much more enjoyable because I'm seeking out the resources that I want to improve on a certain area. So that's probably the main difference between now and back then, is that back then I feel like I was learning a lot of things that maybe I wouldn't have done on my own and not really too much of an interest to me. But and then now it's pretty much everything that I learned I'm excited about and passionate about, and I want to just kind of learn more and more.
Okay. Now, I want to kind of stray away from that question and your personal experience to ask you, what do you think, uh, or it's, yeah, why do you think that once we've obtained the slightest amount of relevant knowledge to of a certain subject, we think that we know everything about it and we just stop our learning process?
Yeah, I think that's something that, especially in the world today, this is a very important conversation. I think it comes down to insecurity and trying to prove to ourselves that we are good enough or smart enough. We all know that person who, whenever there's a conversation about something, we all know that they're not an expert in like brain surgery, right? But if we're at a dinner table and something comes up about brain surgery, there's that person who took, a couple biology courses in college, and they think that they know everything there is to know about brain
Just a
surgery.
couple of YouTube videos.
Right, exact. Couple YouTube videos, a couple of Netflix documentaries, right?
Yeah.
Um, and all of a sudden they know everything, and they just feel the need to just share this information as if they know everything. However, if you happen to have a brain surgeon at the table, that stops very quickly, because now there is an actual expert who doesn't, feel the need to prove him or herself. So I think in the beginning, and I know for me now looking back, this was definitely part of it. The lack of confidence and the insecurity in being a physical therapist or being a bodybuilder, that is what drove me to feel like I had enough information to now go spread it to the masses. I vividly remember talking to my family members, and I just couldn't wait. One of the things that got me so excited was going to family parties and having people ask me questions about pain. And I said, oh, you know what? Come over here, lie down on the floor. Let me do this test and let me do this little joint, manipulation here. And I'll release this muscle and stretch this muscle and do 3 sets of 10 of this. And you'll be feeling great in a couple of days. I couldn't wait for that to happen. Because I don't think I was doing it maliciously, just like I don't think many people who do this are doing it to spread misinformation. I think we are just so passionate about this, and we're kind of addicted to that feeling of being right and proving ourselves. Conversely, now I avoid those conversations at all costs. If I know someone has pain, I try to stay on the other side of the room because now if someone asks me about low back pain, I say, oh my goodness, like, please don't ask me, because it's just so nuanced, so multifactorial. I don't even know what causes back pain anymore. But back when I first graduated, I could have told you exactly what was going on with your back. So now that and same thing with bodybuilding too, right? Like back when we first started in it, I would love for people to ask me, like, what's the best carbohydrate to eat after we train? And I would say, oh, well, you got to have like a fast digesting carbohydrate because it spikes your insulin, and a fast digesting protein like whey. This way you can take advantage of that anabolic window. And I would just go off and start educating. But now if someone asks me like a question about a diet or how to set up a training program, I'm just like, oh, geez, like, this is not the place to start. Like, we need to start way back and get a foundation here and get an understanding that adherence is most important, and finding something that you love to do. And so very similar to what we're talking about here is I don't like those questions if it's just in passing, right? If someone wants to sit down with me, like you, for example, if someone wants to sit down for 45 minutes to an hour and however long and talk about pain, I'd be more than happy to. But coming up to someone at like a dinner party or something at a gathering, that is what, that's tough. That's tough. And I don't like that anymore because I did go through that shift where I thought I knew everything. And now I realize that I don't know anything. But I think it comes from a place of insecurity. I think it comes from a place of lack of confidence. And I most certainly don't think it comes from a place of malice. I don't think it's intentionally trying to do harm or spread misinformation. Of course, there are people out there like that, whether they're selling something or they just, they have some ulterior motive. But for the most part, I truly think that most people just don't know any better, and they think they're doing their best. They think they're trying their best. And I kind of, whether they are or not, I sleep at night better thinking that most people are trying their best.
Yeah, I was just about to say that most of the time this mindset tends to be a bit more profitable because you tend to give straight answers to people, and that's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for that magic pill for their back pain to go away, or to have 30-inch biceps, or whatever that is that keeps them up at night. Uh, but also, I think we can, after you talked about it a bit, I think we can draw some comparison with conspiracy theorists that are sort of looking to be a part of a group and gain confidence through tribalism. Uh,
Yeah,
and,
definitely very, very similar. Yeah. Yeah, it's, very, like I said, in the world today, I think a lot of people would benefit from just keeping their mind open and understanding that we don't know everything, and even people who think differently we can learn from. And that's, I think that's the key to everything, not just in science or fitness. I think it's the communication in the world in general.
yeah. And where do you think that that barrier lies, where you understand where that you don't know everything, that you're missing out on a lot of quality information by keeping that mindset of I already know enough and I even know enough to teach other people? How do you bridge that gap where you say, okay, I think that I need to educate myself a bit more?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think for me anyway, I think it comes down to having that growth mindset and always following what you're passionate about and not just being complacent and being comfortable with being the same. So what led me to groups like Clinical Athlete and 3DMJ was that I am always hungry and thirsty for knowledge. I always want to learn more. I always gravitate toward people who are science communicators, who are into what I'm into, physical therapy with an athletic background and things like that. So because I am always taking in information, it's impossible for me, unless I'm just taking in information and it's going through one ear and out the other. It's impossible for me with this constant influx of information that I'm trying to consume. It's nearly impossible for me to not change, or to not see something differently than I'm seeing already. But if I don't have that mindset, if I get to that place where I feel like I'm comfortable and I know everything that I have to know to do my job right, I know enough to get patients better. I know enough to clock in at 9 o'clock, clock out at 5 o'clock, and come home and just go on throughout my day. And if I'm comfortable doing that for the rest of my life until I retire, then I think that type of mindset will keep feeding into that inability to change and to get past that I know everything phase into the, oh my goodness, I don't know quite as much as I thought I did. But I think if you have that growth mindset and that urge and that hunger, to keep learning and keep seeking out experts and auditing the people who you're learning from, and even listening to people who you don't agree with, even if you know that they're not a great resource, even just hearing them out, and you may be able to get some insight as to what they're thinking, and you don't have to agree with them necessarily, but if you listen with the intent to understand, rather than be threatened by something that they're saying if it's different than you. I think that sets that foundation of crossing over from I know everything and I'm comfortable and I'm competent to, okay, this is a lot deeper than I thought. And then it's also important to go down those deep rabbit holes, understand that you don't know everything, but still be confident in relaying information to people. And that was kind of like you mentioned before, it sells to have the top 3 exercises for low back pain. It sells to have like one easy trick to do X, Y, and Z. It doesn't sell to have a 18-minute conversation about the nuances of pain science. There's nothing to grab onto. It's more like there's philosophical conversations around pain, and there's so many different things, and that only kind of fits with a certain personality of the person
I
in
don't know
front of you.
about you, but I was about to grab my wallet after you started that conversation.
I'll tell you, man, that's exactly it. That's how I made my millions, by talking about the nuances of pain science. So yeah, that I think is a big part of it too. The and kind of this idea that we have to keep learning and keep that open mind. This way we cross over, we make that crossover to knowing that we don't know everything, but at the same time we have to be able to communicate confidently to our patients or to people who we want to help. And that comes with it's an important job that we have, and it's not always easy. Some people, I think what's important is if we have to get to know the person that we're talking to, because everyone learns differently. Everyone is going to take things differently that we say to them. So some people don't want to know the nuances of pain science. They just want to know, look, I'm hurt. I want you to help me get better. What do I have to do? That's a different conversation than someone who asks a lot of questions, is intrigued, looks up resources that you recommend to them, asks you questions about those resources. So it's important to be able to give definitive, confident answers, and have the person feel confident in you, but also understand that we have to let them know that this is more nuanced than they may think. But that doesn't mean that we don't have a successful approach that we can take to get them feeling better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you. And I think that this field in general is centered around complex questions, and us giving some sort of simple answers to our clients, whether it be trainees or patients of yours when you talk about your job as a physical therapist. Just not let them think so much about the nuance and do the thinking for yourself. And now I want to bring you back to when you talked about quality information versus bad information that we see on the internet. And God knows, we've got some bad information on the internet. How does one differentiate good from bad information from a more gullible point of view, since most of us at some point are completely unknown to the field, and once we see someone speaking out with confidence about the idea, that's usually what we're going to be gravitating towards. And especially what you said, once we go to a certain rabbit hole, it's very hard to go to a different route. Meaning, if we're going through the bad information rabbit hole, we're going to stay in there for a while.
Yeah, honestly, I think that's probably one of the hardest things to do, because I know for me, and I don't know, I'm sure you as well, we don't know where to start sometimes. And like I said, I started in the muscle magazines, and everything just seemed legit to me. Everything seemed convincing. Like I had no reason to think that that information was not the gold standard. I think some key things to look out for in any resource or any person that you want to learn from is the the ability of that person or resource to say I don't know, or to say I was wrong, or if there are a lot of gray answers, like not always a yes or a no, or words like always or never or best or worst. Those things are what I would look out for. I would also, so I guess those may be red flags. Yellow flags would be things like if the person is selling something. Not always is that a bad thing. I mean, they're great people who sell great things, but just make sure that if someone is selling something, look at them with a little bit, go through with a kind of a fine-tooth comb there. Just make sure that that resource, and that person, and you follow their content for a while, and then you feel confident buying something from them. So by no means is it a bad thing to sell something, but just make sure that if there is some kind of product that's being sold, and everything that comes out is like supporting that, that green shake, or like that fit tea or something like that. If it does everything, and every post on that person's Instagram is this, and it does this, it does this, it does this, and there's never anything that has like any kind of even a hint that maybe this product isn't God's gift to the earth, that may be something you want to look into. If you look at anyone like take Eric Helms, for example, or he has the muscle and strength pyramids, and he has mass, right? Mass is the monthly application in strength sport. These are all paid products. However, you don't see him constantly marketing them. If someone asks him a question, he may refer them to it, but he'll also give them an answer for free. Or he has hundreds of blog posts, YouTube videos, where he's giving this information out for free. He's not just promoting this product to sell, right? He has given out this free information. He lets people know that there is a process to finding the right training program. And so Gary V, I'm not sure if you know Gary V, he has this this saying where jab, 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 hook, basically meaning not in an offensive way, but jab, 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 meaning you give free content, give free content, give free content. And then at that point only, that's when you have some kind of product. So you got to watch out for the people that just have product after product after product, and don't have that, that urge to do good. Kind of a long answer, but I guess it would be finding people who are open-minded, open to being wrong, will admit when they're wrong, and will kind of explain the nuances of things. And then once you find those people, then you can use those people to find more resources. So for example, if you follow 3DMJ, then you can look at 3DMJ and see who they promote and who they follow, who they recommend. And then that will give you 5 other people, who then give you 5 other people each. Or, someone in physical therapy, same thing, like clinical athlete or barbell medicine. You find people who they recommend now, and now you have your little web of innovative thinkers. And then it can get very, very quickly. You can shift your mindset, and you can then, once you have those resources you follow, the good and the bad resources stick out like a sore thumb, because once you engulf yourself in those good people, once you see someone outside of it, you're like, ooh, like, no, that just feels dirty. Like, I don't want to, that's not what I'm about. So I would say in the beginning it's probably difficult, but once you find those people that just scream like authenticity and honesty and integrity, follow them and follow who they follow, and then that will take you down the right path of resources.
Mhm. Now, first of all, as a guy who's been boxing since he was 8 years old, I really appreciate your analogy. And about what you said, I definitely agree. And to some extent, at least, since a lot of great people are using sort of clickbaity, whether it being just posts or videos or whatever, but they are giving the nuance, they are giving a lot of quality information inside of these videos and not just, as you said, the best 3 exercises for low back pain or anything like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. And on the Iron Culture podcast, it was I think it was Greg Knuckles and Jeff Nippard. I think they were both on there at the same time. They were talking about that. They were talking about how sometimes you have to have those clickbaity titles,
Yeah.
but then if it delivers after that, then that was just opening the door, right? It's not like just clickbait and then there's no content behind it. So I feel like it's just the nature of the beast of the way that social media and YouTube is. And if the good guys want to get, the following that they deserve, sometimes I guess you have to, play the game a little bit and kind of, do that stuff. But as long as the content is there to back it up, that's kind of what has to be done. I know nothing about growing a following like Jeff Nippert, so I can't speak, but that's what I've heard him talk about.
Yeah, I think I also heard heard of him talking about in either the Stronger by Science podcast or the Iron Culture podcast, as you said, that it's also about how much of your content is clickbaity. I mean, if all of your content is about that magic pill, versus if it pops up once in every 5 or 3 videos or anything like that. And inside those clickbaity videos, you also see decent content. So that should be a good indicator that you're in good hands.
Yes.
Now, I wanted to finish up with asking you, what advice would you give yourself in hindsight now that you know everything that you know right now, as an undergrad student, or once you started PT school, or even you as a teenager reading those bodybuilding magazines?
I would say keep that fire. So that feeling you get in your stomach when you feel like you have butterflies or you feel like time doesn't exist. So when you sit down and do something, or you go do something and you just get lost in this flow state and things just feel great, and you blink your eyes and like 3 hours goes by and you're just, you get engulfed in that. I would say follow that, because that will lead you to whatever has to be done. That definitely has led me to where I am today. Also, I would probably tell myself that can't always be that. Sometimes you're going to have to do some things that aren't, that don't give you that fire, but know that you're doing them so that you can do those things that give you that fire in the future. Sometimes there are steps you have to take to get to that point. But if you keep that burning passion, if you keep that North Star consistent, it will guide you down the right path. And of course, like we're talking about today, I would tell myself, if you ever feel super confident about anything, always just be ready to be proven wrong, because things change all the time. Even if you are confident that the sky is blue, don't be afraid to question it. And I would say also, don't talk as much. I would say don't talk as much. I would say listen more. So that goes back to my younger self at a family party. Everyone's sitting around a table asking about pain, rather than me stand up on a stage and with a microphone and explain why their back hurts. I would say sit back and just listen more. We're given 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. We should listen more than we talk. Um, and so that would be my main messages. I think follow that burning passion. At the same time, know that sometimes you're going to have to do some things that don't feel that great, but understand that you're doing them for a bigger purpose. And then if you feel like you know something 100%, always question it and don't be too confident in any kind of thought or belief. Don't let your sense of self be wrapped up in a thought or belief unless that thought or belief is constant growth and constant knowledge. And then also listen more than you speak.
Mhm. On the other hand, don't question stuff too much, because then you're going to get wrapped up in a different. It just won't be a fun experience probably.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
And then you just wind up a conspiracy theorist with a weird hat on your head, walking around.
Yeah. Yeah. Pretty much. That's where it gets you.
Yeah. Okay, so let's finish up with if people want to give you a follow or just learn more about your content, where might they find you? And if you want to talk about any upcoming projects that you have, now's the time.
Sure. Well, thank you again. I appreciate the opportunity to come on here. I love doing this stuff. If you want to follow me, the best place would probably be Instagram at Nick Licameli, 3dmusclejourney.com. That's the number 3, letter D, musclejourney.com. I forgot to mention in the beginning, I have my own online physical therapy and wellness business, and that can be found at strengthtogetheronline.com. Or you can shoot me an email at nick at strengthtogetheronline at gmail. I'm sorry, nick at strengthtogetheronline.com. So yeah, feel free to reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to connect and help out any way that I can.
Okay, cool. Thanks a lot for your time. And